Zato is yet another character who has his defense modifier value decrease, so he takes less damage overall in this patch. In the previous patch, this sequence from Asuka did 110. And this is how much damage he is dealt in the current patch. 103, so a decrease of 7 damage overall. As Zato is one of the lower life characters in the game, he does appreciate being able to take a few more hits. Like Milia in the previous video, Zato also sees a number of nerfs to his 6P to make it more in line with the rest of the cast 6Ps. It's lost active frames and has increased recovery. I'll go ahead and play the two side by side so we can compare. It's pretty dramatic how much slower this is on whiff now, and will probably make it so that Zato players will have to be more conscientious of when they're throwing out 6P, because before, it very much felt like a safe option to deal with most of the enemy's pokes, so now there might be some opportunities to whiff punish him here. Close Slash deals more damage now. In the previous patch, it was 22 damage. In the current patch, it's now 28 damage, a 6-point damage increase. Zato's Far Slash has its attack level increased, which means there's more hit stun as well as block stun to the move. The patch notes specifically point out that this is so that it can now combo into Invite Hell. As you can see in the previous patch, that wasn't possible. This is pretty nice for Zato, as it means that if he doesn't have any Eddy gauge available for him to go into other cancels, he's able to at least guarantee that he's able to create space against the opponent when he's solo and gets into this Far Slash confirm. I have the dummy here set to guard first only, and it's worth noting that this isn't a true string. So there is always still going to be a gap when you come to use this move. However, it's going to be a little tighter on the frame trap overall, which probably means the opponent has less opportunities to mash out against it. A change I won't be able to demonstrate incredibly well in these videos is going to be to his crouching slash. It has increased active frames, so that means it's going to be active for a few more frames after it comes out. This makes it better overall as a poke, because now there's more of a chance for the enemy to run into the active hitbox. Heavy Slash has decreased knockback on hit now. In the previous patch, this is about how far Asuka would be pushed away, his cape barely overlapping with the leg of Zato. This is the current knockback. As you can see, there's a lot more overlap between Asuka and Zato's model in this. The patch notes themselves explicitly state that with the change to standing heavy slash into Wild Assault into Damned Fang should now be easier to combo. As you can see, there was some issues getting this to link in the previous patch. Compare that to the current patch. It's a pretty free conversion to get, actually, and this is something that Zato will appreciate given the buffs to Damned Fang that we'll talk about later. 6 Heavy Slash sees a number of buffs, actually. This is how it behaved in the previous patch. As you can see, Zato was pretty far away from Asuka after landing this move. Now let's take a look at all the buffs together. They decrease the startup, so it's faster. They decrease the knockback, so the opponent is closer to Zato. And they made it so that Zato moves faster on the horizontal axis while also retaining his momentum upon landing. As you can see, we're pretty close, actually within close slash range. So I imagine in combo routes where Zato is able to add this move into the combo itself, he should be able to get close slash pickups afterwards. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find any tech on Twitter regarding potential pickups like this, and I'm not a Zato main that's about to learn negative edge inputs in order to give combo demonstrations for the character. If anyone wants to share some examples in the comments below, either by writing out or posting some links, please feel free to do so. Pretty much all of the special moves that use Eddy have had their damage increased. So let's go through them one by one. Pierce has its damage increased. In the previous patch, it did 2 hits of 15 damage each. Now, they do 17 damage each, so overall an increase of 2 damage per hit. So did That's a Lot. In the previous patch, it did a total of 42 damage if you landed every single hit. In the current patch, it now does 49 damage for a total increase of 7 if you get all of the hits. Let's look at Leap's damage. The 2 hits together did 44 damage in total. Here's the current damage. 52 damage in total, so a notable increase. Oppose also had its damage increased. In the previous patch, it did 46 damage. Here's the damage in the current patch. 56 overall. There's also a few other changes going on with the pose that we'll break down now. Arxis has readjusted the Eddy life gauge cost on the move itself, reducing the cost while the move is on standby and increasing the cost when the move attacks. Overall, this means that whenever you do let a pose rock in full, Zato still consumes all of the Eddy life gauge. However, in the previous patch, if you canceled into another move after you took advantage of the armor frames of a pose, then you'd have a little less Eddy life gauge to work with. And you can see we're a little over half on the Eddy life gauge after we cancel into Pierce. Let's take a look at what it costs now during standby. As you can see, we're well over halfway on the Eddy life gauge. This means that Zato is able to use a pose in his pressure sequences a lot more often now than he did in the previous patch. A nice buff for him. With the opposed changes, Zato is able to press his offense a lot more freely because he's going to be able to stop the opponent from mashing on him as he wants to go into other Eddy cancels with it. Flynn Neverwin on Twitter describes a situation where you're able to basically pseudo jail into a strike throw mix-up against the opponent by doing this sequence. They're going to go ahead and change some of the settings to demonstrate different behaviors the dummy could do, like reversal DP, for example. So, some potentially strong stuff here. Let's try to do that combo in the new patch. You actually OTG the opponent, so now Frog, or Leap I should say, no longer fully connects. Break the Law has a nice quality of life buff to it. In the previous patch, if you ran out of Eddy life gauge at some point, even if Eddy was on screen, you would not be able to teleport to Eddy during Break the Law by pressing down, down. As you can see there, I went down and was started to mash down, down, and Zato stayed in place. Let's compare that to the current patch. Even though I was out of my Eddy life gauge, because Eddy was still active on screen, I was able to teleport to his location. This is a nice buff for Zato because it means now he's able to go into full screen combos with Eddy that completely deplete the Eddy life gauge, then follow up with Break the Law and extend the combo in ways he could not do so before. Courtesy of @Yanar Asakura on Twitter, they demonstrate that you're able to go corner to corner now because of this change pretty easily. This last teleport with Break the Law would not have been possible in the previous patch. So again, a pretty nice quality of life buff for Zato. Damn Fang has a nice quality of life buff. In the previous patch, you could use this command throw in order to buy yourself plenty of time to regenerate the Eddy life gauge. However, it lost the ability to regenerate it fully after some nerfs from Arc System Works a couple patches ago. As you imagine, this was a huge nerf to Zato, simply because of the fact that after he goes for this command throw, if he's out of Eddy life gauge, he was not able to really continue looping his offense anymore. Now, they basically restored its older functionality by making it so that the final hit of the command throw completely regenerates the Eddy life gauge. So once again, after landing Damned Fang, Zato is able to start going for his Eddy summon pressure yet again. This also serves as a great way for him to recycle that resource and be able to extend his offense using this throw. A very nice buff. Drunkard Shade had its frontal hitbox and hurtbox expanded. Unfortunately, I won't be able to effectively demonstrate the difference between this expanded hitbox and hurtbox compared to the previous version of this move. So I recommend that you find some sort of collision box viewer online. Maybe Dustloop will have something available for y'all to check out there. This should mean that it's more likely for Zato to connect this against an opponent or their projectiles, as well as for the opponent to potentially counterpoke against it as well. The last change to Zato on the patch notes is to his super Sun Void. There's a buff and a nerf here, so let's look at the buff first. They've increased the damage of this super. In the previous patch, it did 45 damage. Now for a look at the new damage. 54 damage overall in this patch, so an increase of about 9 damage. pretty small considering this is a super, but this is also Zato's utility super, so it shouldn't be too crazy in terms of damage. This OTG property is also pretty much true for any other follow-up that Zato could try to do here, including Pierce, the fastest of the options. And even if you cancel into other moves, the dummy is recovering from OTG state, so it's not like you're going to be able to extend combos with this anymore. Now for the nerf, and this one certainly has a lot of implications for Zato overall. They've increased the recovery of Eddie. So after you throw Eddie with the sword, he now has a longer cooldown before he's able to actually act out of it again. In the previous patch, it was possible for you to use this to regenerate your Eddie life gauge and then extend the combo further. As you can see, both hits of Frog connected there. On Eddie after Sun Void that the patch notes themselves explicitly call out. First is a situation that happens on block if you do Sun Void into That's a Lot. I have the dummy set to jump on block. And in the previous patch that you saw, going into That's a Lot after Sun Void actually frame trapped the opponent's attempt to jump out. So they basically had to hold the pressure, allowing Zato to advance forward and then continue his offense with mix-ups. Because of the change to the Eddie recovery, if you try to go for this block string now, the opponent is actually able to jump before That's a Lot comes out. This means that if Zato wants to lock the enemy down, he has to commit to another Eddie move before he goes into That's a Lot, namely Pierce. As you can see, Pierce still catches the frame trap, but then you have to clap cancel into the That's a Lot to then run up and run your game. This means that Eddie is a little more costly after Sun Void in order to maintain your offense. I suppose it's a frustrating patch for Zato players because while some other characters get massive overhaul reworks that certainly have improved them overall or get new exciting tools to play with, Zato still does not have his new special move within this patch, nor does he have a patch where, after being a bottom tier character within the realm of Guilty Gear Strive for several patches now, he still can't get away with a patch with nothing but buffs, as there's a couple of nerfs here and there throughout the changes. I'm certain that the Sun Void changes are going to be felt a bit by these Zato mains out there, but there's ways around them, especially when you look at the pressure sequences, though the loss of its combo utility certainly does hurt a little bit, but I suppose that's just to make Amorphous the go-to super whenever you want to do big damage against them, or the choice between that for damage and Sun Void to regenerate the Eddie life gauge if you get a wall splat. There's still plenty of things to appreciate here for Zato overall in this patch. He appreciates the new combo routing he's able to get, the ways he's able to take advantage of Eddie's positioning now more frequently with Break the Law's follow-up option, swapping places with Eddie, as well as the changes to Damned Fang, making it so that if he ever runs out of Eddie gauge, he's able to instantly reset it and get back into the game with Eddie by his side by using that throw. And the ability to combo into that as well to manage that resource is certainly something that he is going to enjoy. I'm very interested to see what people are able to really show with the pose, because that seems to be part of his core game plan running forward and something that makes him more unique compared to the other heavy mix-up characters going forward. Having the safe pressure that you can't match against and having multiple opportunities to cycle through it more often because of the adjustment to the Eddie life gauge cost is something that I think will be interesting for the character. Still, I don't see him shifting around his potential power level within the overall tier list too much, simply just because it feels like Zato is getting some of his removed functionality back. Meanwhile, the rest of the cast has been sprinting ahead of him in terms of their power levels. So I still unfortunately think Zato is not going to be a strong contender, especially a viable solo main going forward in this patch, but maybe he could be a character that people can main in tournaments while having a secondary character to cover some of his worst matchups.